Hello, Helena. It's Emily McVeigh, Executive Director of the United Way of the Lewis and Clark area. I'm here for this week's United Way Partner Spotlight with Colleen from Youth Homes. Nice to see you again.
Hello,
And from
Emily.
Margaret Stuart Youth Home. Tell us all about what happens at the Margaret Stuart Home.
Oh my goodness. Well,
Not all the things.
Yeah,
but
we don't have that much time, nor is that appropriate. But we operate as close to a home environment as we can. We're licensed for 8 youth aged 11 to 17, and it's a co-ed facility. I only have 7 bedrooms, so even though I'm licensed for 8, 7 is a full house. The kids, it's a community-based program. We're not locked down. The kids go to Helena School District schools and East Helena schools. We take them to a bunch of appointments in the town, make sure that their medical needs are being met. And we try and get them outside every day because that's important. Just have them volunteer in the community. We just kind of try and keep kids safe when they don't have somewhere else safe to be.
And where do the kids come from?
Well, primarily they are placed by either their juvenile probation officer or a child and family services worker. No one really comes to the Margaret Stuart Home who has a wonderful home life. And some of the kiddos have gotten in trouble with the law. The Margaret Stuart Youth Home is unique within Youth Home's network of homes in that the majority of the youth that we serve are from Lewis and Clark County. Other homes have quite a few out-of-community kids, but we really serve Helena kids.
And you talk about the Youth Homes Network. This is part of a bigger network of programs that is kind of all over the western half of Montana.
That's correct. So Youth Homes started in Missoula in 1971, and they took over operation of the Margaret Stuart Youth Home in 2014. But they operate 3 therapeutic homes in Missoula, 1 home for youth aging out of services, so you have to be 16 to 18 to live there. And they really are geared towards independent living skills. And then there is a shelter in Hamilton and a shelter in Kalispell and the shelter in Helena.
Yep. So kids can sometimes bop around a little bit, but we try to keep kids close to home. But they can stay in their same school, near family,
Although sometimes it's best to be served out of community also because a change of scenery can be helpful.
Yeah, or maybe a disconnection from a certain friend group or whatever it may be. Yeah, right. So you said you try to get out every day. I know exercising young people is very important. What kinds of things do you do? And you have a lot of things that you do during the summer usually, so you have lots of things coming up, I'm sure.
That's correct. So my summer coordinator is coming back for his 3rd year, which is so wonderful, I can't even say. And so there's a pretty robust summer program. We volunteer with the 6th Ward Garden Park, go and play in the dirt. Well, I think that they're planning a trip to Ringing Rocks. We go to the Museum of the Rockies. Usually one of my relief staff, who's been in the mix for decades, will take the kids to the Buffalo Jump. And we'll kind of give some history and maybe they play some native games, and he does kind of this whole production. It's pretty great. He's been doing it for a long time.
So you keep the tires on the van while he's going that way. We got lots of fun stories from the histories.
Very much so. Let's see, what else are we doing this summer? They've been trying to get to the hot springs the last few weeks, but sometimes we're naughty and we lose the privilege of going to the hot springs. Or it's just, kicked ahead a week. So.
Yeah. Let me say, don't tell all the stories, but they're not, they're not terrible kids. I know they get a bad rap a lot of times from people in the community, and they're seen as delinquent youth, but they're really good kids that just don't have a lot of skills or haven't been kind of socialized very well.
Right.
You know, I once actually wrote a song about the kids, about how one of them tried to make popcorn in the dryer, and that is not a thing that works. So
Oh, my
sometimes they're
goodness.
just kind of creative and
Very much so.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's just, you know, they are very inventive. And, you know, I had a couple of kids last year who were both 14, and neither of them knew how to tie their shoes. But they figured it out. You know, they got somebody to do a double knot, and then they just slid them on. And everything was fine until we took them bowling. And then they had to ask staff to help them tie their shoes. And so thankfully we were able to teach them both before they left our care. So it's amazing the skills that we learn at Margaret Stuart. We try to, so every week the kids rotate and they cook a dinner. They pick what they're making. They get a budget, they go grocery shopping, and then they make a meal for everyone. And we had a kid make chicken cordon bleu this last week.
Nice.
I know, right? And he was so delighted. He was so proud of himself. It just is.
And he should be. That's not an easy dish.
Right? Yeah. So, and you know, sometimes it's hot dogs and chili from a can, but at least you can eat it, you know, I mean, that's, and you warmed it up yourself. So that's excellent. And next time, let's add French fries.
Right? Yeah. Well, and it's just those basic skills, like you said. I once was in your seat, so I used to sit over there and talk about what Margaret Stuart was. But yeah, we'd have kids that didn't know how to do laundry, sometimes didn't know really how to brush their teeth. And so a lot of times you're starting early years training, and you know, it's like, it's no fault of their own, and lots of times not even fault of their parents. It's they live in a chaotic situation, and these weren't the priorities. It was feeding and housing and the basics, and those other things just didn't quite get done.
Right.
And so you know, it's nice that they could come and they could learn some of those skills. But I know you said it's not as robust as maybe it used to be, but the independent living training and bringing in volunteers to teach some of those skills is always fun, important, gets the kids to learn from somebody new.
Right, and sometimes they're more receptive to faces that are not
Absolutely.
the staff faces. Yeah, it's really nice if folks have a certain skill set that would be beneficial. You know, someone who loves to sew and wants to give the joy of sewing to the
When you
youth.
do that, call me. I'll come over to learn.
Okay, I know. That's actually why I mention it, is because I want to learn to sew too. So I will, you know, you may have staff sitting in on classes.
Right.
So, but yeah, one of my staff the other day brought in a small engine and took it apart with the kids and taught them all how it worked. And I unfortunately missed that class because I was in a meeting, but maybe I'll catch it next time.
Yeah, and everybody has their own things that they do really well or love to teach other people, and it's really, like you said, bringing in the new face, I think, is the most valuable piece of it. When they're used to listening to staff and being told what to do, but when somebody new comes in, they're there to listen and they want to learn whatever skill they bring. And yeah, that's great. So going back to the Youth Homes Network, there's been some shifts in leadership over there in Missoula.
That's true. So we have a new Chief Executive Officer, Amy Schaer, and Amy has been with Youth Homes for, I think, 15 years, give or take, and previously was the Development Director for 8 years. I previously was the Development Coordinator here, and so Amy was my direct supervisor for a time, and she's just wonderful to work with. And it's really nice when someone is raised from within the organization because they just bring all of the institutional knowledge. So, which you can appreciate. I mean, you have more institutional knowledge of Margaret Stuart than I do. So, but yeah, I'm really excited for what lies ahead. We also they opened up a new position, a Chief Operations Officer, I believe. And we haven't had that position before, and a gentleman named Charlie Wellenstein has taken that over. And he has history with the organization too, having worked there in the past. So I'm really excited for the future.
And you have a couple of positions open or
I
things that you
do.
would fill if the right person came along?
Yes. So I would take a case manager and a development coordinator, please, Helena Community, if you're interested. I think that if we could get those positions filled, it really would help us open up a few more services. But that said, I am, and we could also take another relief staff at any point in time, really, because it's just fun to bring someone new into the mix.
When you always need those last minute fill-ins.
Right? Oh my goodness, what are you doing right now? Would you like to come to Margaret Stuart?
Right.
But, in spite of maybe needing some help in those areas, I really am kind of living in an alternate universe because, knock on wood, I am fully staffed, and my staff is wonderful and has incredible longevity. A lot of them have been at Margaret Stuart for years, and some of them have been there longer than I have. And it's amazing what one can do with a robust and seasoned staff, and I am so incredibly grateful. I cannot say enough nice things about them. I mean, I wouldn't want to do the work without them. They really make coming to the group home fun.
I say one thing I always say about Margaret Stuart, because it's one of my first loves, was people to get down about the kids and who they are and where they come from and all those things. But I was there for 7 years. I mean, probably 1,000 kids walked through the doors while I was there, and you see them all over town. They work at Walmart, or I had one draw my blood as a nurse at the clinic one day, and she, "Do you remember me?" And they do all kinds of jobs. They're out there being good, productive citizens. They're married with their own children. They just had a bump in the road. They needed to kind of get past that, and they're just great. They're doing great, most of them. People always ask me how in the world I ever did the jobs that I did before, but they're really good kids. They just needed a boost. They maybe their family needed some help, whatever it was. People were there to provide it for them. But you're right, the staff, when we went through the process of sort of giving away youth homes and picked youth homes. Like, we were Montana Youth Homes, they were youth homes. And when we had a little funeral for our staff. We had a little saying goodbye to Montana Youth Homes. It was that big a deal for us to walk away from that as a team. So I get it. Yeah, like the staff are just, it's hard work, and people always question how sane I am for loving that work and loving teenagers. But it takes a certain kind, and when you get the right team, it's just amazing how well things can go.
Yeah, it is. It is
you just
amazing.
can't get enough kudos to the staff and the things that they put up with some days.
Oh my goodness. Yep.
Like cleaning out a dryer. No. It was all fine in the end. But yeah, a little bit of the history and the dates, of course, escape me now. But people do question when I talk about youth homes, and they go, "Oh, well, that's a Missoula thing." Well, no, it's really a Helena thing. It's been a Helena thing for a really long time. The group home was actually started back in the 70s by just a couple guys who were like, "We don't have any place for these kids to go if they don't have a home." And so they actually just opened up a home and started a group home before licensing was a thing. And so way back in the 70s, this was happening, and then it morphed into youth homes over the years, and it had several different locations and several different names. My favorite having been the Last Chance Group Home.
Also my favorite, yeah.
But Margaret Stuart was built 40 years ago, probably. It's
Late
been there a
80s,
long
yeah.
time. I don't say the late 80s, it was 40 years ago, but yeah, it's been there a long time, running that same program out of that house. At one point, the basement was actually a facility for small children, but that has been a long time since that's been. But yeah, people.
And wasn't there a lockdown facility in the basement at one point too?
There was an alternative learning school down there when I started. So it's been a variety of things, but upstairs it's always really been the shelter for kids that need a place to go. So just, people kind of go, oh, that's a Missoula thing. We don't need to support that. But no, really, this is a Helena thing, and it's always been a Helena thing.
Yep.
So just, it's under the Missoula umbrella.
Yeah.
But, people here, kids from here, staff from here, and named after Margaret Stuart, who was a longtime social worker and professor at Carroll. So, very much Helena roots here. But what did I forget to ask you? What other things do we need to share?
I'm not entirely sure. It's never a bad idea to ask for monetary donations, so I could do that at this time, I suppose. So because we operate, the shelter just operates in the red. That's what it is.
All shelters do.
And the reimbursement rate for us is $150.70 a day. They've worked out the actual cost, and it's closer to $275 a day. So there's a discrepancy, which is filled with monetary donations and various grants and various programs under youth homes. So if folks would like to donate money, we certainly would accept it, and we would use it to take good care of kids.
Do you take other kinds of donations, like food
Yeah,
or
in kind.
toiletries?
Yeah,
or,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Or canned goods. I mean, absolutely. If it, would be used at a group home, chances are we're interested.
Yeah.
So,
Clothes that teenagers would wear.
right, because clothes that adults would wear are not the first choice of teenagers.
Yeah. It's not their favorite when they move in and they don't bring anything with them.
Yeah.
And their choices are grandma's old closet. Not a fun day. Although they'll wear it just because that's what there is. But yeah. Yeah. And I don't even know what teenagers wear anymore. So maybe
Well,
better
not
just to give
coats, I'll tell
better
you
just to
that.
give money, because then you can actually buy them what they want.
MP3 players are handy to have because we don't allow cell phones, really, for the most part. And but music is so important, and so a little MP3 player. I mean, they used to be like $5, and now I can't find them for less than $20.
And you
I
have to
hand
order
out-
them online.
And I hand them out
Yeah.
like candy.
Yeah.
I mean, and earbuds. So those are good in-kind donations also.
So if you just have an old one laying around you don't use because you have a cell phone,
Right.
take it down.
You can bring it. You can bring us your old used MP3 player, and we will throw a party.
Right. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Well,
It's
thank
great
you,
to chat
Emily.
about Margaret Stuart and youth homes. Thank you, Helena. We'll see you again next week.